Shamina said that it was the first time that we really make emphasis on this treaty, but I think I don't ever do a historical account of the island without mentioning either the meaning of the treaty for us or mentioning the incident that took place that can prove us that this treaty, we have lived it all throughout the years. And I feel I'm repeating myself in a different way because a different audience, you present things differently. Now, I really had to make sure that I don't have more than 5 pages. Because you know when you start talking and you start explaining, I make sure, because this letter that I received told me the speech should only be about the Treaty of Concordia. The why, when, where, what, and how should all be in the speech. So as I went along, I had to, okay, this is not needed. You don't want to hear that. So I ends up, it's from the beginning to the end, it's the speech. I have given all the aspects, I think, the psychological, the sociological aspect, the emotional aspect, not only for we now, but for the people that has kept it up all along. And I think the rest I will leave for the discussion, because I have been challenging the legal bodies of this island. I have also challenged the possibility that we should stick to the letter, the essence of the treaty. He said, why? When? And I have to start with the name of the island. According to archaeological research, the artifacts found in 1961 at Kupokoy Bay, between Plum Bay and Long Bay, close to the Simpson Bay Lagoon, and in the lowlands, can be dated from 800 to 1300 of our era. Christopher Columbus' doctor's record of his 1493 voyage did not mention this island, neither the 1,500 first world map drawn by Juan de la Cosa. The island appeared for the first time on a map dated 1516. You can take notes. The dates are very important if you want to follow my chronological account. The so-called renal map under the name San Martin, that map was also called Carta Atlantica. The Spanish, who were the first Europeans to claim ownership, you hear it? To claim ownership. Is that very easy? You see an island and you claim ownership of it. Referred to it as San Martin. Coincidentally, after Spain abandoned the island in 1648, it was shared between the French and the Dutch. And this petition was sealed in a treaty dated March the 23rd, 1648. The first Catholic church of the island, situated in French Quarter people, you are, as early as the end of the 17th century, so 16 and something, was dedicated to Saint Martin. Later on, the Catholic church in Great Bay was also dedicated to Saint Martin of Tours. Finally, It is in 1936, not far, not long ago, that the Dutch side officially adopted the Dutch spelling Sint Maarten. The history of the island did not start with the 1648 treaty, as you can see. So I told you about the last artifacts, 1300. So after 1300, which is the latest period of artifacts found in the lowlands area, there were no Carib or Spanish settlement on the island. But it is inferred that the Caribs came now and again. And I'm going to go chronologically. In 1624, some 300 years later, the Dutch visited the West Indies in search of salt after the closing of Araya in Brazil. In a 1624 report, it is mentioned that the island was a real, and I quote, no man's land, a refuge for numerous English, Dutch, Irish, and French seafarers scouring the Caribbean Sea. I want you to listen very well to that, the type of people, and to try to go back into that time. Because right now, they make us believe that the French and the Dutch discovered or shared the island or owned the island. And we have a tendency of thinking that it was officials. And that was not the case. So this is 1624. Now in 1627, 3 years later, the West India Company, or the West Indies Company, depending on the time the book is written, sent 2 ships to inspect the salt pans in St. Martin. In 1629, and that West India Company is the Dutch West India Company. In 1629, 14 Frenchmen, chased from St. Kitts, found refuge in what is now the French Quarter area. French Quarter. From 1631 to 1633, a group of 30 Dutch people, together with 40 Africans, picked salt in the Great Salt Pond in Great Bay until the Spanish chased them. And I guess you can remember, and I'm not going into the detail, it is this battle where Peter Stevenson lost his leg. It's at that period. It's that period. They had built a fort at Little Bay and were not yet aware that the island had a small colony of Frenchmen in the northeast. Imagine. So the place was covered with trees and bushes. And it doesn't look like what it is today. In 1633, the Spanish drove the French and Dutch settlers from St. Martin. From 1638 to 1648, the Spanish took control of the island for the first time since 1493, as it was officially in the hands of the King of Spain since 1493. They built a fort in the southern part of the island and had a garrison. It is also mentioned, very interesting, a mulatto called Sebastiano, who lived in a hut away from the Spanish military camp at the fort. In the beginning of 1848, the Spanish came from Puerto Rico with unskilled laborers. Listen good, unskilled laborers from that settlement to destroy the entire fort, which they could not afford to maintain. Among the unskilled laborers from the settlement of Puerto Rico were Fichot and 2 other Frenchmen. Fichot and 2 other Frenchmen. That is 3 people, 3 Frenchmen. Fichot, and although they given his name, he was an unskilled laborer. That's why I guess, in those days, they used the boats used to cut, the French would cut catch the other boats, the other nationality, and they would keep everybody in prison. So whether you're French, you whatever, you were kept on this. This is really have nothing to do with what we are living today. But this is what happened. So Fichot and 2 others decided to run away in the bush and wait there until the Spanish left. Meanwhile, they met with a mulatto, probably Sebastiano, according to my sources, who joined them. So 2 and 3 and 1, 2, yes, 2, yes, there were 4. Some account give 5, but so there got to be a little mistake. But this original account, it's Fichot and 2 other Frenchmen, and they met with Sebastiano. When they reached on the seaside, they found 5 Dutchmen who had run away also. They talked and agreed to inform their nearest governors that the Spanish had abandoned the island. So there you have all the legend, the story about the Frenchman and the Dutchman, since he liked beer or whatever, he got drunk, and that's why forget about that. And you are going to see in the fight to gain possession of the island that it's the contrary. The Frenchman was not very intelligent, because you're going to see what's going to happen. St. Eustatius was the nearest island, and it was the Dutch base, just like St. Kitts was the French base for that period. So the 5 Dutchmen offered to go over to St. Eustatius to inform their governor, and they promised the Frenchmen to go to St. Kitts the following day to inform General de Poincy. And I had to look up some things, because sometimes they call him General de Poincy, sometimes they call him de Longvilliers, Robert de Longvilliers. It's the same person, Robert de Longvilliers de Poincy. As Fichot got no news, the 5 Frenchmen remained on the island to guard it until the return of the Dutchmen. Immediately, Abraham Adriensen, the governor of St. Eustatius, commissioned Captain Major Martin Thomas to take possession of the island as governor of St. Martin on February 14, 1648, and those are the people that will be in the beginning of the treaty. As Fichot got no news, well, they stayed on the island. He got no news from Governor de Poincy of St. Kitts. He understood that the Dutch messengers had not notified the French governor. So he took the first opportunity to do so, since he felt that the French had as much claim to the island as the Dutch. As soon as Governor de Poincy got the news, he dispatched de la Tour. You are going to see him also in some of those documents, with 30 men, but the Dutchmen on the island refused to let one single man come ashore, pretending that they had been commissioned by their governor in St. Eustatius to occupy the island, since it was not inhabited, and the first comer should be the owner, according to them, and overlooking that Sebastiano was already living on the island. De la Tour returned to St. Kitts with a copy of the Dutch governor's commission, stating that